President Donald Trump is saddened to hear about Joe Biden's cancer diagnosis, but also probably not all that shocked. After all, on his flight back from Abu Dhabi last week, he said Joe Biden hid a lot of things. Was this one of them?
I know people that are 89, 90, 92, 93 years old that are literally perfect, but Joe was not one of them. And they did a lot of hiding. They were really playing games, and you can't do that. Our country's at stake. You see, even a thing like this, there's so many decisions for billions and billions, but then you have even more important decisions. You have decisions for life, and you can't have a man in that condition. And everybody was holding back, including the press.
That was President Donald referring to President Joe Biden, former President Joe Biden's mental condition in his capacity. In a whirlwind news weekend, the first thing that happened was Axios dropped a recording of the previously unheard interview between the special prosecutor, her, and President Joe Biden after they found top secret documents in Joe Biden's garage. And that was the meeting where the special prosecutor came out famously and said he's an elderly old man with a bad memory, and therefore we probably shouldn't charge him with a crime, even though he may have been guilty of a crime. President Donald Trump, not too happy that that was hidden, not too happy that that was covered up. Not a lot of people were. And then within 24 hours of that episode, Joe Biden's team released a statement claiming that Joe Biden had been diagnosed with prostate cancer, an advanced form of prostate cancer that had metastasized to his bones. He will be undergoing some kind of therapeutic treatment, and everybody should wish him all the best. This immediately set off all kinds of speculation and conspiracy theories, and citizen journalists delving into the past to find out if this is truly a new diagnosis or if this is something we knew about all along, just like his mental acuity. So within 2 days, Joe Biden had his interview released, then released the statement that he has prostate cancer. All of this coming right on the eve of the release of the new book by Jake Tapper, which outlines all of Joe Biden's and the media's cover-up of what was his diminished mental state. In the meantime, President Donald Trump is still doing a fantastic job with everything. He came back from the Middle East. He came back from Qatar and Abu Dhabi and Saudi Arabia and got right back to work. He released a statement on Truth Social saying that he's going to be speaking by telephone to President Vladimir Putin of Russia on Monday. That's today at 10 a.m. The subjects of the call will be stopping the bloodbath that is killing on average more than 5,000 Russian and Ukrainian soldiers a week, and trade. I will then be speaking to President Zelensky of Ukraine, and then with President Zelensky, members of NATO. Hopefully it will be a productive day. A ceasefire will take place, and this very violent war, a war that should have never happened, will end. God bless us all. So President Donald Trump on his docket today is to finally end the war in Ukraine, to finally get a ceasefire going. He's got calls booked with President Vladimir Putin, President Zelensky. He'll be talking with NATO. He'll be working on the ceasefire. That is what he's got going on and he's just returned from a whirlwind trip to the Middle East. A lot of aides and office staff members in the White House and the West Wing said President Donald Trump didn't take any days off. He immediately went back to work and checked in with his staff to find out how things have been going since he'd been gone, not just with trade deals, but with Iran, not just with trade deals, but here at home, domestically. And there's a lot of information about that. Scott Bessent, who is the Treasury Secretary, was on the Sunday shows yesterday. He was on with Jake Tapper, and he talked about the tariff proposals that are coming in fast and furious. And not only are the tariff proposals coming in fast and furious, but they're really good tariff proposals.
And I can tell you that with a few exceptions, the countries are coming with very good proposals for us. And I look at these proposals and they want to lower their tariffs. They want to lower their non-tariff barriers. Some of them have been manipulating their currency. They've been subsidizing industry and labor. And I look at these proposals and I think these are excellent proposals, but I wonder, how did we get here? How did the previous administrations allow this to happen to the American people?
And I think a lot of people know how the previous administration allowed it to happen to the American people. The previous administration planned it to happen to the American people because the previous administration was getting a lot of money from these same foreign governments that were taking advantage of the country. And if they were getting money and if their family was getting money, then it didn't really matter what was happening to the rest of us. Jake Tapper also asked Scott Bessent about the jet from Qatar or the Qatari jet that is being donated to the United States of America so President Donald Trump can use it in lieu of the Boeing jet that is nowhere near ready to be delivered as the new Air Force One. And Scott Bessent had a fantastic response to this really ridiculous and played out question.
You're a hard-nosed businessman. Even if Qatar isn't asking for anything in return now for the jet, I mean, that's a bill that could come due. Nobody in the Middle East gives things or anywhere in the world just gives a $400 million jet just to be nice.
Well, I don't know, Jake. The French gave us the Statue of Liberty. The British gave us the Resolute desk. I'm not sure they asked for anything in advance. And the more important airplane deal was there's $100 billion of orders from Qatari Airlines to Boeing. Kelly Ortberg, the CEO of Boeing, was with us in the Middle East. This is the biggest order in the company's history. Mm-hmm. So, I think that plane deal is much more important than this other one.
Well, I will just say about the Statue of Liberty, I mean, that was authorized by Congress, and it belongs to the American people. It doesn't belong to whoever was president at the time.
Well, I think that this plane would be a gift to the American government.
Yeah, it's not a gift to the President Donald Trump. It's a gift to the United States of America. It's a gift to the Department of the Military, to the Air Force, so that they can retrofit it and use it as they will. And then when it's done, it's going to be decommissioned and donated to the Presidential Library for President Donald Trump. What the media is trying to do is they're trying to fabricate a story that Donald Trump is getting lavish presents from foreign governments, and in return, they're going to demand he do all kinds of crazy stuff. And that's just not the way it works. Donald Trump is also a hard-nosed businessman, and Donald Trump makes deals, and Donald Trump makes deals for his client, which is you, me, the American people. And that's one of the reasons why he's wheeling and dealing with all these countries. It's another reason why he refuses to let Iran have nuclear weapons. He's willing to negotiate. He's willing to use diplomacy. But at the end of the day, any kind of nuclear weapon, any kind of nuclear power in Iran is just not an acceptable option. So while they come to the table and deal, they're going to have to make sure that those plans are off the table. And Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State, is all over it.
Well, look, if you're able to enrich at any level, you now are basically able to enrich at weapons grade very quickly. I mean, that's just a fundamental fact, and everyone knows it, and that was the problem with the Obama deal. But the end goal here is simple. Iran can never have a nuclear weapon. And the president's preference, because he doesn't like war, the president's preference is to achieve that through a peaceful negotiation. He's a builder, not a bomber. That's what he views himself as, and that's what he is. He's a president that wants peace, and so he's offered that route. And that's one we hope the Iranians will take. But he's been very clear. Iran is never going to have the capability. They're never going to have a nuclear weapon. It's not going to happen.
And that is something that not only President Donald Trump wants, but the rest of the world is pretty hell-bent on not letting Iran get a nuclear weapon because it would be detrimental to pretty much everybody involved. Another story that's been bubbling up and percolating and that the press has been trying to, wouldn't you know it, propagandize and misinform people on is the story of the refugees from South Africa, the Afrikaner farmers who fled their country for fear of their lives and were brought here and are now being just berated by a lot of Democrats and a lot of folks in the media. And they're saying President Donald Trump is playing favorites with immigrants.
These are people that on the basis of their race are having their properties taken away from them and their lives being threatened and in some cases killed. These are people that applied and made these claims in their applications and seek to come to the United States in search of refuge. We've often been lectured by people all over the place about how the United States needs to continue to be a beacon for those who are oppressed abroad. Mm-hmm. Well, here's an example where we're doing that. So I don't understand why people are criticizing it. I think people should be celebrating it, and I think people should be supporting it.
That's what happens when you bring in the wrong immigrants, the wrong migrants, the wrong refugees. Refugees are not all built alike. That's what the left wants you to know. That's the message that they're sending to the White House. If they're white Afrikaner farmer refugees from South Africa who are being killed and having their land stolen, they don't qualify as refugees. We want we want the other ones. Yesterday on the Sunday show, we got also a really interesting sneak peek, or a really interesting look into President Donald Trump's FBI. President Donald Trump's FBI under the guidance of Director Kash Patel and Deputy Director Dan Bongino. It was one of the first long-form interviews I think we've seen of Dan Bongino since he left his radio show and podcast to become the Deputy Director of the FBI. And it was a really interesting insight and look into how these two are working together, what the plans the FBI are for the agency, and what they're really pinpointing, what their hot spots are. And Kash Patel led off by saying, look, we are not like the people before us. We do not have a political agenda. We do not have marching orders. We're not targeting people that are just of a different party or that have maybe targeted us in the past. We are blind when it comes to justice, just like we should be.
And unlike other leaders who previously sat in these seats, we don't prejudge any case. We don't care what party elected you to what. It doesn't matter to us. It's irrelevant. If you broke the law, we are going to find out and we are going to investigate you. And then we are going to discuss that matter with the Department of Justice. And this is one of the things that, if your viewers take away nothing else from this interview, the FBI does not make prosecutorial decisions. You asked in the beginning how the FBI was weaponized. Well, the FBI hijacked the constitutional responsibility of the Department of Justice and the Attorney General, and James Comey and others specifically decided what cases to prosecute and not prosecute. Don't believe me? Go to the videotape in the Hillary Clinton investigation. We don't decide prosecutions, and neither does any agent or intel analyst. We have great partners under General Bondi. We work with them and discuss the matter with them, but the prosecutorial decision is with them.
And that is something that is pretty standard. I mean, that's the way it should be. It's not the way it always was. And President Donald Trump knows that better than anyone. The FBI was deciding what cases to prosecute. The FBI director was deciding who was going to be charged, not the Department of Justice. Remember, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, their job is to investigate, bring the evidence that they find and the cases that they find to the Department of Justice, and then they're supposed to prosecute and prove the case in court. That's not the way it was working. Well, from now on, that will be the way it's working. And Maria Bartiromo asked point blank, why was it so different before? Why were they doing these things? Why would the FBI manipulate their power? Why would the FBI put a stain on their own department and make Americans distrust them so much? Here was the answer from Deputy Director Dan Bongino.
Why did they do that? I mean, why put the FBI and its reputation at risk? What, it was just to win an election? Why?
Because they're weak. Because they're weak. I hate weak people. I can't stand it. They didn't have... we're on TV, so I already said BS once. But they didn't have the guts, the courage, or the character to do the right thing. They did the easy thing. Donald Trump became a convenient political football. They thought they could leverage. They thought they thought with the media on their side that they'd get away with it.
And they did for a very long time. They got away with everything because they had the media on their side, because they had everybody weaponized against President Donald Trump. Everybody had the same goal, working against getting Donald Trump back in office. If Donald Trump was going to run for office, they were going to do everything they could politically and non-politically, or, using the power of their offices to stop it, because they were weak. They were weak candidates. They had a weak agenda. They had weak campaign strategy, and nobody could win an election on their own accord. So they were trying to stop Donald Trump from winning his by throwing him in jail. Not really what we do here in the United States of America. Not really the American way. But alas, that's how things happened. One of the other questions that was asked was about fentanyl. And Kash Patel, the director of the FBI, had a really interesting point of view. And, because the border is closed, the southern border is closed. It's shut up tight. Nobody's coming through. We've seen a 99.9% decrease in illegal border crossings. So where are the drugs still coming from? Here's what he said.
In the first 2-3 months that we've been in the seat under Donald Trump's administration, he has sealed the border. He has stopped border crossings. So where's all the fentanyl coming from still? Where's the trafficking coming from still? Where are all the narco traffickers going to keep bringing this stuff into the country? The northern border. Our adversaries have partnered up with the CCP and others, Russia, Iran, on a variety of different criminal enterprises, and they're going and they're sailing around to Vancouver and coming in by air. And the sheer tyranny of distance of the northern border and the lack of cooperation from federal authorities in prior administrations to actually firm up that northern border is what's causing a continuation of violent crime. Now, we're focused on it, and we're calling our state and local law enforcement partners up there. But you know who has to get to step in is Canada, because they're making it up there and shipping it down here. And I don't care about getting into this debate about making someone the 51st state or not, but they are our partner in the north. And say what you want about Mexico, but they helped us seal the southern border. The facts speak for themselves. The border that's open, I'll give you a statistic that I gave to Congress that nobody was paying attention to. Over 300 known or suspected terrorists crossed into this country last year illegally. Known or suspected terrorists, not illegals. Not just illegals, known or suspected terrorists. 85% of them came in through the northern border.
Wow.
This year, 100 known.
Yeah, 100 known or suspected terrorists have crossed in through the northern border. So once you shut up the southern border, everyone starts coming through Canada. And there seems to be a lack of cooperation from the new governor of the 51st state. And they're allowing these illegal drugs to continue to be made, produced in Canada, and brought over the border. And they're sending, oh, well, you know what, terrorists in too. So the southern border is secure. The northern border, which is much more porous, much longer, much colder, and apparently borders with a country where we don't get nearly the cooperation that we get from our friends on the south, is now the new issue. It's the new problem, and it's something that they will be looking at very diligently. Dan Bongino also had a stark and stern warning for another group of domestic terrorists, you might say, or bad people here in the United States that he's specifically targeting and coming after, and that is child predators, online child predators, which the FBI is really stepping up their efforts to combat and to bring to justice.
Yeah, with that knock at the door, it's on Amazon, and that's going to be us. This is a huge job. And Maria, not only does it destroy innocence, I said to everyone in the room, say week 2 or 3, when Cash and I put Restoring Justice together to go get these mutts off the street, these kiddie pornographers and these animals, right? I said to everyone in the room, I said, you know why this is going to matter to America? Because everyone in the room is a child or a parent, right? There's no immaculate conceptions here, right? I love Jesus, but there's no one in the room, right? I said, this matters. And not only that, it creates generational crime, because abused kids then become abusers in a lot of these cases. I said, we have a chance right now. I said, we got to go make their lives painful, these bad guys. And we went and we locked up in a month, 400? We saved 115 kids. And you haven't even seen the beginning, because those 400, a lot of them are talking. And when you log onto that network next, you have no idea what we're doing. You think you're safe in your dark web? I promise you are absolutely not safe. You have no idea what we can do.
The knock at the door will not be Amazon. By the way, my Amazon guy doesn't knock. He just drops the stuff on the on the front porch, takes a picture, and leaves. But we've got Dan Bongino, we've got Kash Patel, and they've got directives to secure the northern border, get child predators off of the street, make sure that the future generations are safe, and not weaponize the government against any of Donald Trump's political adversaries. Seems like a pretty solid job so far. We will, of course, keep you posted. Listen, there's a lot more to cover. As I said, it was a very busy news week, and we do have audio from that interview with Joe Biden coming up on my second daily podcast, Mark Kaye Saves the Republic. 1 p.m. Eastern, we go live. You can also download it and listen to it anytime you want. Mark Kaye Saves the Republic. Go to your favorite podcast platform, whatever it may be. Search Mark Kaye Saves the Republic. Download, listen, and enjoy.